Hello, hello. We are back with another episode of Grow Beyond the Budget, and I am so excited for our guest today, Miss Alexis LaShan Willis. I am going to allow you to introduce yourself to all of the listeners.
Yes, well, thank you first of all for having me. And I'm super excited for us to connect and to grow. So I am Alexis LaShan Wills, and I am the proud founder of Long Lifestyle LLC and also the podcast host of the Me Too Sis podcast. So shout out to the podcast creators.
Yes.
So thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited for you to be here. So we got connected through some other space on
Mhm.
social media,
Yeah,
and when I saw your profile, I was like, okay, this is a woman that I need to be connected with. I am all about growing, and I love that in your business you talk about glowing, and so there was some synergy there. So can you just
absolutely.
quickly tell us, like, what is the glow? Like, tell us what that stands for, because I think it's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So long lifestyle is definitely a lifestyle of living in gratitude and in love. And we also are living in our original design. So when you hear original design, you're like, okay, what does that mean? How did God create us? What did he mean in the very, very, very beginning? When before he knew us or before we knew each other, and how we came to be, he had a purpose for us, and that is our original design. So we live in gratitude, we live in love, and we live in our original design. And when we do those three, we win. So it's a glow, it's a win, and it's a lifestyle because it's continual. It's always growing, it's always glowing, and we should always be winning. So yeah, it's a continual work.
Yes, when I saw that, I was like, yes. I was like, okay. I love a good like pun and wordplay. So
You
like
know
all the
it.
things, and it had a really rich and impactful meaning. So I was like, this is a woman that I absolutely
Uh,
need to be connected with. So thank you so
thank
much.
you.
So tell us a little bit about your journey and
Mhm.
how you became a purpose and life coach.
Absolutely. So, as I tell everybody, my journey has not been perfect, which none of ours have, right? And so I like to always start here and say, I got here with a whole lot of Jesus and a little bit of therapy. Okay. Period. Like that's the quick version of how we get to this point. A whole lot of Jesus and some therapy sprinkled on up in there because we had some work to do. We had some undoing to do. And so for a little more context, so growing up, I grew up in this golden child just story, right? Like all the pressures, all of the first year do this and do that, and all of the things, so many expectations, and quite frankly, living my life based on what everybody else wanted me to do, right? And so eventually that turned to resentment. Eventually that turned to like, actually, I don't want to do nothing y'all just said because I'm tired. Like, I don't even know if I really like this for real. And I'm just out here doing stuff, right? And so got to a point in my life where I was really, really burned out from living up to everybody else's expectations and then not even knowing if I even had a voice or if I even knew who I was supposed to be, what I wanted. And so I got to a really, really low place in life where I was just really operating out of character. I mean, drinking every day, hooking up with people. And when I say hooking up, just like connecting myself with people that were really draining. And finally, because God is kind to us, even when we are real far, He still taps us on the shoulder and He sees, like, hey, you're my child.
Mhm.
And when I love my children, I'm not going to let them die because I have purpose for them. I have purpose in them. And so, as He did, He sent that good tap on my shoulder. I was like, all right, baby girl, come on. I'm gonna need you to head on up out of there. I'm gonna need you to come on over. And I grew up in church, right? I knew all the church isms, so it wasn't like it was foreign to me, but I didn't have a relationship.
Mhm.
And that was the difference maker. And so I rededicated my life back in 2020, at the top of 2020, had no clue that the world was going to literally fall into shambles just months later. But again, the Lord in his kindness, he said, yeah, you're going to need some help trying to get through this. So I need you to head on out. And so coming from a very depressive space, toxic space, just really not knowing what I even was created to do. And in that, I found him. And from there, he was like, all right, now we connected. I got some things for you to do. And he's like, yep, I need you to go encourage some people. I need you to help some women figure out what their light is. I need you to, right? So he started giving me the blueprint to what it is that he originally designed for me to do. And I honestly have been on a journey. It's been dark. It's been a lot of undoing, but I can definitely say that I'm no longer living up to other people's means outside of God's. And if he said go left, then we're gonna go left. Now I might have a few questions along the way. But you know that I am truly, I can truly thank God, because he truly not just saved my life, but he also helped me to begin to help other people see theirs as well. And so that's how we got here, girl. A whole lot of Jesus and therapy, undoing the perfectionism, right? Undoing the what do other people believe your life is supposed to be versus listening to the voices on the inside, and just a lot of unhealthy habits, truthfully. And he's like, yeah, I got something else for you, and I'm going to send you some resources here on earth to help you get through that. And that's where that therapy and supportive community supportive community came through as well. So
Yes, I love it. There's so many things that you just said. First of all, it's Jesus and therapy, right? Because I think someone said once that like we're spirits having a human experience,
mhm,
but we are still having a human experience,
very
right?
much
So
so.
there are the thoughts, there's the flesh, there's so many things as humans that we are going to need to navigate. Where Jesus has given us resources in
Absolutely.
therapy, in books,
Yep.
in journaling, and tools that we can use in human form that can help us navigate some of the things that we deal with. And so
Correct.
I love that you added, therapy as a resource and a tool for you.
Yeah.
There is no shame and stigma to, go into therapy if you are a
Mhm.
believer, right? Again, Jesus has given us
Absolutely.
these resources to use them.
Resource.
Don't use the
Okay.
tools, y'all sitting here bypassing the tools.
Listen.
Um,
He said, I
but
am the
yes,
source and I give you resources. Yes.
yes, exactly. I love that. Yeah, he can't be the source and not give you resources.
Mhm.
Um, something that you said, when you were thinking about, the voices and people having expectations for you,
Mhm.
were those explicitly expressed to you? Were there people in your
Mhm.
friends, family circles that were saying, hey, you have to do this next, or,
Mhm.
or was it just like this, almost like the backhanded subtle things, like, oh, we are so proud of you for doing XYZ, and you, like, you know what I mean? Like, what was
Mhm.
that language
Mhm.
that created that narrative that you had to,
Mhm.
go and be that go-getter?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think it's a combination. It was definitely a combination of you go do this, you go do this because I've seen you do it and I'm proud of you, so I expect you to do it, right? Like, so it was that combo of I've seen you do it, and so therefore I expect you to keep going, right? And so that though was internalized to me in now building my own pressures, like, oh, well, if they've expected you to do it 9 times, then you know they're gonna be looking for that 10th time, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead and and so that again was internalized. And where I got older, it wasn't necessarily the, oh, I expect you to do like my now. Mama wanted me to go to grad school right after undergrad, and I told her, I was like, yes, sis, that ain't happening. You can box that up and put that dream on the shelf because it's not happening. Okay, I'm tired and I'm gonna sit this one out,
Yeah.
right?
Pick
But after
somebody else.
pick somebody else to do it, right? But the funny part about that though is it never left the back of my mind. And
Yeah.
so what I think it might have been 3 years later, I still felt this I need to go to grad school because it's expected of me, and I did. And then I got there and I ended up failing classes, right? So it wasn't my heart's desire.
Right.
But again, it was still in the back of my mind. And though I made the decision to take a pause, I still had this like but they're waiting, but they're expecting. But, you know, and again, this is no fault of anybody's, but it's just
Yeah.
kind of the way that it works, right? And, or the way that it did work. And so I definitely believe it was a combination. And again, just as a, over my lifetime. And I thank God that He's given me the ability to do things well. But that doesn't mean that's always the case, right? But when it wasn't the case, when I didn't do the good work, oh baby, that thing would eat me up. And I would be so hard on myself because I felt like everybody else was expecting me to reach gold every time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's deep. And I feel like, when people are saying things like that, and, a lot of times they are not ill-intentioned.
Correct.
Those are all seeds that get planted and they are
Hmm.
there. And,
Hmm.
sometimes it turns into weeds and sometimes they
Hmm.
turn into flowers. And,
Yeah.
I think just as a mom and as, a woman, I try to be so careful with my
Hmm.
words and things
Hmm.
that I speak over people because,
Yeah.
is this a seed? Am I planting an expectation on somebody that they're
You're
going to
right.
have to carry and deal with and either weed out or nurture? And
Yeah.
so it is so important
Yeah.
for us to be just mindful of our words and our language
Yeah.
because that those expectations can lead to stress. It can lead to
Mhm.
burnout. It can lead to you living life on autopilot. It leads
Yep.
to you, doing things that aren't in alignment with the things that you want.
Hmm.
And so even with, your journey, you also mentioned, um, just kind of being at a place now where you kind of have your own voice. Like, what did
Hmm.
that look like to start to really form your own identity and your own autonomy of your life and your choices?
Yeah. Whew. Girl, we still on that journey. Some days are
And it's
better
a
than others.
journey. I
It
love
is.
that, right? Because like you said,
It
it's a
is.
lifestyle, it is a process. And I
Absolutely.
think we think that, okay, I'm gonna be healed or I am
Mm.
done. Like it is a process. So
Listen, it's very
I
much so.
understand that it is still a work in progress, but like those initial
Yeah,
shifts, like what did that
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's a beautiful journey though, right? So don't get me wrong. Yes, there's a lot of icky parts, but those are the growing pains, right? And again, it's a choice. It's a choice to grow. It doesn't just happen organically. It's a choice. And so being clear there. But along the beginning stages, it was really hard because I was battling between this worldly confidence and the godly confidence. And truthfully, when I switched over, and not when I say switched over, but when I really started beginning to walk with God, I was like, okay, you got to be humble. You can't. We're not supposed to boast. We're not supposed to, right? Like, so I'm taking the Bible literally, and I'm like, okay, mom's a word. We good. We gonna chill, be in the background. And I'm gonna be very honest. I didn't really trust and lean into my own voice until January of 2023. I'm gonna
Mm,
be very honest. So it's like yesterday.
yeah.
And one thing that shifted me, I got a prophetic word at the end of 2022, December of 2022. And though the word was very full and a lot for me to process, the thing that I feel like kind of snatched me into reality and made me begin to walk out. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me, right? Like really stepping into the God confidence. Um, the word that I got, he said, it's time out for you to stop thinking you're unseen or trying to play it in the background because that's an insult to heaven.
Ooh,
And when he said that, out of all of the things that he
yeah.
said,
Yeah.
that was a thing that like took my breath but gave me breath all at the same time
Mm, mm-hmm.
because it was like God's way of saying, I gave you a voice. I gave you so much that I not only want you to have for you, but I need you to release your sound into this earth.
Yeah.
And you going back and forth trying to play humble, right? This false humility because you're actually scared and you're insecure, it's an insult to what I put inside of you.
Mm,
And that was the game changer.
yeah.
Like out of all of the things, yes, the therapy was amazing and I thank God for it. Yes, the people clapping and pushing me where that was amazing. And I thank God for it. But it was not until he had to square me up and literally say, "Girl, if you don't, you better." That's literally what I heard. Like that's
Yeah.
how I heard God say it. It was like, "Girl, if you don't, you better." Right?
Right.
Like saying, "Time is now."
Yeah.
Right? We always hear, you were made for such a time as this. And I was so fearful of how my sound would be released there, because it didn't sound like this person, or I wasn't quite sure, because he does give me a different kind of delivery, right? And so because I had never seen it before, I'm like, God, I'm I'm good. I'm gonna just sit back here and I'm gonna write in my journal, and I'm gonna pray my prayers in my closet, and I'm gonna just sit real cool and be cool. And he was like, "No, ma'am.
Yeah, no.
Mm-mm. No, ma'am." And so that was the game changer for me. And that's when it switched from the confidence in my own humanness to the confidence in, like, okay, God, you trust me with this, so I have to trust me with this, right? Like, I'm not doing this because I'm just this great person. No, I'm doing this because you gave it to me. You placed this inside of me. And if I trust that you are God and you are good, that means everything that you've given me has to also be good. And so I'm just going to try it out. And here we are, 8 months later. And the Lord has been real kind because I've trusted him in
Mhm.
what he's given me. And that was the game changer. And I don't know. I can't speak for anybody else, but I know for me, I never want to be an insult to heaven, ever.
Yeah.
And so if that means I got to say, a few quick prayers and whatever I need to do to get right together so I can go forth, I'm gonna do that, because that's all he had to say. It's like, oh,
Yeah. That would that I mean, when
yeah,
you said it to me, it hit my chest. And I'm hearing it secondhand. So I can imagine
yeah,
how it would have been in my young throat, right? Like in my
yeah, yeah,
chest, my
yeah.
neck.
Hmm. I said, oh,
Um,
and you said it in front of a whole church full of
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Oh no, dog! You ain't have to put me out like that. You didn't have. Wait, but we here now. Okay, all right, got it.
But one of it, so what, I think it's awesome that you had that revelation. One of the books that I absolutely love, Believe Bigger by Marshawn Evans Daniel, is
Mhm,
a book about purpose unlocking and all of these sorts of things also.
mhm,
And, in the book, she talks about our universal superpower, which is our voice.
mhm,
And
mhm.
we all have a
Yeah,
voice. We all
yeah,
have a story to tell that is so
yeah,
unique to us. That is our voice, and our stories and our lives are meant to impact and
mhm,
influence someone else's life. And when we silence our voices, when
yep,
we play humble, aka scared, when we, insult heaven, right? Like, we also have to think about all of the people who are connected to our
mhm,
voice and our
mhm.
stories and those different
Yeah,
things. So we
yeah,
have to all use our voice. So the community that we have here on Grow Beyond the Budget, there are a lot of women who are, first gen, who have, been those high achievers, who are overcoming all of these different things. We're the first
mhm,
in our family. We're creating the blueprint as we go. And
mhm,
sometimes it is intimidating. It is scary.
yeah,
And you want to just kind of shrink back and be like, no, I'm gonna sit this one out again, pick
yep.
somebody else.
Pick
But
somebody
I want
else.
to just remind us that, our voices, our stories are powerful. We want to
Right.
make my go-to scripture is just, I always want the Lord to be pleased with me, right? Like
Absolutely.
when
Hmm.
God said, like, my son, with who I am well pleased. Like,
Yes.
I
Yes.
just want that. Like, can
That's
I get
it.
that, right?
Okay.
And so I
That's
don't want to
real.
be an insult to heaven. I want God to be pleased with how
Yeah.
I live my life, and in alignment with, who God created and designed me to
Correct.
be.
Correct.
And so, as we're talking about, like, the original design and the work that you do, what
Hmm.
does that look like for someone who is kind of struggling to identify what her purpose is? Because,
Hmm.
purpose is one of those words that's kind of loaded. It feels heavy. It's like, what's my
Yeah.
purpose? Like,
Yeah.
everybody's digging around trying to find it and doing all
Yeah.
this soul searching. And so I love the way that you even explain purpose.
Mhm.
And so can you talk a little bit more about, like, in your words and your
Mhm.
beliefs, what does that mean?
Yeah. So purpose is very loaded, right? But when you think about purpose and the way that God has given it to me to share, purpose is an inside job. It's not a job. It's not a career. It's not a title. Purpose is who you are when you get up every single morning and you lay down every single night. And the way that he shared it with me is that it's so loaded because it's your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
You don't wait. Purpose is not a destination. You don't wait till you get a certain age to arrive at purpose, because we're born with it. It's innate. Literally, he knew how ghetto this world was going to be, and he said, "I'm going to send my child at this appointed time
Yeah.
because there is something inside of she or he that is going to be needed in every single space that they enter." Right. And so purpose is innate, it's your being, it's present with you in every single room. And when we operate again from that original design, right, it's starting with who is God. The more we know about God, the more we learn about us. Right. And so a lot of people are digging, they are searching, they are seeking so many external things. And he's just like, hey, guess what? Here's your
Here
answer. Just come seek and you'll find, right?
Yeah.
Like, come knock and I'll open the door. Come ask and I'll answer, right? So like literally he's just like, your answer is closer than you think
Yeah.
because he is with you everywhere, especially as believers, right? And so um the more we learn about God, the more we learn about who we are. And so one of the ways he helped me to see purpose is um is your entire like how did he give it to me? Passion is your car, right? So you switch cars, but I mean you switch vehicles, and then purpose is your fuel, right? So each car is likely gonna either take gas or now we got these electric things or whatever, but purpose is your fuel. And so though your cars may change, that means your job. You may become a mom. You may become a wife. You may become a husband. You may become these different things, these different vehicles, right? Your purpose, I mean, your passions are changing. However, each one of those requires some source of fuel. It requires either gasoline, it requires either plugging it into a wall and getting it recharged. But your purpose is what recharges you in every single space that you're in, and not just recharges you, but keeps you going. Like literally the days that you don't have the motivation, you have to think about, okay, God, okay, you created me to be an encourager. All right. Well, no, I don't feel like talking to anybody, but you start talking to somebody and then you end up doing exactly what he created you to do, even if you don't want to do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's keeping you going, right?
Yeah.
And so he's helped me to see that purpose is not just one single silo destination. And so the same person that you are at work, you should be the same person at the grocery store. At the same person at the grocery store, you should be the same person at the cookout, right? Like I can't tell you the last time I did not go to sleep without encouraging somebody. Even the days that I did not feel like talking to anybody.
Yeah.
He'll put somebody across my path and we'll be talking, and I could probably even be going on about what the heck I'm going through. And somehow or another, that thing will spin back on around. And I'm like, well, but the beauty about that is that I have come to the resolve that that's just who he created me to be.
Yeah.
And that is actually what keeps me going again. That gives me the fuel, the refuel to say, okay, nope, you didn't want to do it, but now you see that you've helped somebody else, right? Now that you see you've given away, and he says in the word like it's better to give than to receive anyway. And so when you are pouring of yourself in whatever way that is, so if you're a generous giver in finances, right, or helper, or even peacekeeper, right, like our purpose should always be aligned with the spirit of God, the fruits of the spirit. So if you are operating in some capacity of all of those, then you are operating in your purpose, and then you have the jobs and all of the titles that get you to get the passion behind it. It's like, oh, okay, I love youth. Okay, now I'm gonna go work in youth, and that'll be my vehicle for the season. But
Yeah.
then he will switch it up and say, hey, okay, now I need you to go work with domestic survivors, right? Again, people, but you should still be doing the same thing in all arenas. So I know I kind of went around, but that's the way that um, I believe he's calling us all to start seeing a little bit differently, because I believe we do spend so much time chasing after one thing or another, and we spend so much time. And he's like, if you would just, first of all, look up and then you look within, you got your answer. And you
Yeah.
can start it. You can start as soon as you realize those two components. And so he said, and when you look up, you look within, and then you look around. But we got it backwards. We're looking around and
Yeah.
trying to see. And so he's like, yeah, come on, let's reconfigure this equation. So that's purpose.
That was
Yeah.
beautiful. That was so beautiful. And just to kind of just reiterate what you just said, right? Like I do know so many people, myself included, in like trying to find purpose. I looked
Mhm,
around, like what are the things that I want? What do I
mhm.
want my life to look like?
Yeah.
Then I looked within and was like, okay, who am I? What do I want to do? Like, and then I looked in
Mhm.
and then I was like, is this good?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
this
yeah.
right? So we did it. I did it backwards.
Yeah.
And so I love that, right? Look
Mhm,
up, look within, and then you can start to look around.
mhm,
And I love this conversation because, purpose, identifying and unlocking is something that I work with my clients with
mhm,
in our early sessions, because when you start to understand, God's purpose for your life and
mhm,
who you're called to serve, the vehicle that you're in this particular season, it
mhm,
really can act as a north star and a compass
mhm.
for how you can align your finances and your actions
Yeah,
and your behaviors and your
yeah,
spending with the life that God is calling you for in this
correct.
particular season. So I love that. Thank you so much
Mhm.
for
Of
sharing.
course.
I had a kind of follow up question because you talked about like these the keys and the ingredients already being in there.
Mhm,
Were there signs, I mean, looking back at your life, because I have identified my purpose,
mhm.
right? I did some soul searching, I did all the things, I prayed
Yeah.
on it, and I call it the essence of who I am, right? And the
Mhm,
essence of who God created to be. And some of those things are, a change maker, right? If things aren't
mhm.
working, I'm not afraid to change them. I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
I'm an encourager also, right? And there's more, but those are some of the key things that at
Mhm,
the core of who I am, those things have been consistent throughout my
mhm,
life. And so when you think about, yourself, what are some of those things that,
mhm,
okay, this was the common thread. This is my purpose. This is the
mhm,
fuel. And then did you also have signs, throughout your life that were there all the time that you might have just
mhm.
kind of ignored?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question because that's the one thing that I didn't touch on. Because yes, it is very much so a common thread. Again, because it's what we're born with. And so before I came to the aha of my own, he just started telling me like, think back to when you were a girl. Think back to when you were in this place, and he will begin to bring um, different situations and scenarios to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I really been doing this all my life, right? So some of the things for me, like I said, encouragement for sure. I am the peacekeeper. I have always been. And since I can remember growing up in not so great situations, growing up in not so great environments, even in like in college, right? Like all of my friends, like, okay, we know Lex gonna keep the peace, like she don't want a whole lot of right. Um, and when he began to show me those things, he said, these are things that I call destination development.
Mm-hmm.
And what he says is, I put you into environments that are chaotic, right? So that you can begin to operate in the way I created you. So
Mm-hmm.
if things are always at peace, then you don't have a need there, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so he began to show me that he's like, so it wasn't that I wanted you to live this miserable life, um, but I knew that what I put inside of you would help the environment shift, that would bring the peace into the space, and that like struck so deeply
Yeah.
because I did for a long time like resent it. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I would feel bad if I went off too, like, if my temper was too, much, or if I didn't want to be bothered or whatever, because I'm like, I want to be able to go off too, because that's the environment that I'm. And he's like, I didn't create you that way,
Yeah.
right? He's like, yeah, you have right, you have those human moments, yes, right. But there will always be something on the inside of me that's like, okay, you need to go to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
You need to see how, like, it would never be, I would never be able to leave a situation up in arms without the conviction of go make it right and bring the peace back. And so that was one of the things that he literally was like walking me through. Another one is I am a helper. I'm the first girl of my generation. I'm the oldest by a lot of years for my siblings. I was always in some kind of mentor capacity. And again, that funnels back into the encourager, right? Like, so in the sense of a servant leader, right? Like leading by example, but also making sure that I am helping those that we're walking with. And so that was another one. But I would definitely say the peacekeeper has been consistent through and through and through. And even now I hear people that'll come to my house and like, oh my gosh, it's so quiet and like peaceful here. And I'm like, because I don't play with nothing else, right? Like now I know it's like, oh no, we good.
Yeah.
We good. So yeah, I would say those have definitely been the ones that he's like, I created you. And you asked the second question. I want to make sure I covered it. Give me to me one more time, or did I answer it?
I think you answered it. So it was, what were some of your passions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, were there signs that they were there the
Extremes.
whole
Okay.
time? Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you answered that. So tell me, like, so in the work that you do,
Mm-hmm.
coaching women or not just women, sorry, because you also coach men. I have to get that out of my
No,
mindset.
no, no. It's
Um,
okay.
helping people,
Mm-hmm.
with their purpose and their lives.
Mm-hmm.
How do you coach people who are, you know, not sure where to begin, overcome by doubt and fear and insecurities?
Mm-hmm.
How do you start to coach them through, this process of getting to the core of who they are?
Yeah. Whew. That's definitely a journey. Again, still, but I never start with like we figure out what our goals are, right? Um, but it's always like, what are we feeling? Let's deal with it now. Let's deal with where we are current present time. I am also a coach that believes in my clients being in therapy because I've still we can talk about what's what and who's not. They are cousins and they are supposed to work together, right?
Hmm.
Therapy is to help pull those weeds up and out, and then coaching is to say, okay, these are the things that I've pulled out. Now, how do I make this into a beautiful garden? And right, like that's the way that I see it. So most times if my clients are not in therapy, that's one of the first conversations we're having. Let's do it, and it's an in tandem work. And then the because the thing about fear, the thing about doubt, that is rooted somewhere else, and the likelihood of us getting to our final goal for that season, because I won't say destination, our goal for that season, yes, it is going to be some fear, but we have to have the confidence to outweigh the fear. And if fear is paralyzing us to the point of anxiety, is paralyzing us to the point of like not being able to make clear decisions or sound decisions, there is something deeper there, right? And so while I do coach my clients through some of those, I also believe in coaching and while they're working through those deeper rooted things. But for the clients that come in and that kind of have an understanding, they're just like, I want to do it, but I'm a little nervous because I don't really know how. My favorite line to my clients anytime somebody comes into my container: you are the expert of your life. I am just the one holding up the mirror for you. That's it.
Yeah.
I am just showing you what's already there. And that way, that comes through, of course, encouraging conversations. Girl, you got this. Let's go. What do we need to do? Let's write it down. Let's check in. Let's do some accountability. Let's change some habits because that's a part of it as well, right? Like
Hmm.
what are we doing? And if we've been doing it this long and we haven't seen it working, then what do
It's time. It's
right?
time to go ahead and
So
switch it up.
let's switch it up, right? And so giving the firm yet encouraging approach, I feel like it's been, I feel like, some of the most successful ways. But really, you are the expert of your life, and if you say you want to be a CEO in the next 2 years, well, okay, what kind of conversations, what steps have we done to get there? And if we haven't, then let's sit down and let's write out the blueprint. And so I think those are kind of the two starting points, or on both sides of the fence. One, let's do some in tandem work with pulling up some of those weeds and then getting to the final, again, goal for the season. And then two, let's show you what's already within you. Let's show you, just put you on, put the mirror up and say, oh, you actually are a problem solver. Oh, you actually are the change agent in your space. And
Mhm.
again, sometimes I think people just need to hear it from a different voice that's not family or somebody that's close. Sometimes we just need that affirmation from the outside, and especially when it's people who are spirit led, right? Like spirit speaks to spirit, and good spirits and bad, right? Spirit speaks to spirit. And so I feel like when God gives me the opportunity to work with a client, my prayer is, God, move me out the way and you show up.
Mhm.
He knows what their spirit needs and he just sends it through me. And so sometimes I will give them just a word of encouragement that they may have heard or may have never heard. And they're like, oh my gosh. And that just unlocks
Yeah.
so many other things, right? And so I guess I should have started with that, making sure the spirit is leading me because that is how we get to it. But yeah, I think it's much it's a much more, you know, curve curvy path to get there, but ultimately just like assessing where they are at that current moment and then figuring out where we need to go moving forward.
Yeah, I love that you brought up like the therapy and coaching piece, because I am very, very clear on the differences between the two, therapy and coaching, and then being a financial coach versus a financial advisor, right? I am
Yeah.
about how I serve people in the capacity that I help, to the point where are you in therapy is on one of my intake forms, right? Because that is so important. And when I started my business, I worked with an entrepreneurial mindset coach who was amazing. She will be on the show very soon.
Yeah.
I work with a mindset coach for women entrepreneurs, and she helped me with, again, that mirror that showed me some of those weeds that were deeper rooted. And so people always say, when they think about like, what they can talk about in therapy or coaching, can help you see, okay, these are deeper things that I need to really hash out.
Right.
And like you said, you can work with a coach and a therapist in tandem. And so, when I think about therapy, in most cases, your therapist is really going to be working to kind of untangle, like again, you said, dig out those roots. They're really looking to help you process past events,
Mm-hmm.
past trauma, and those sorts of things. And
Right.
coaches, we are looking at how can we move forward, right? Like we're looking at, again, like you said, I love how that what you mentioned about like the flowers. How can we plant
Mm-hmm.
something beautiful here?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the biggest differences. So thank you for mentioning that, because I think that's
Yeah.
really important for people to understand the differences between those two things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, so, I think I asked you in a kind of roundabout way, but when you're thinking about, your purpose and in your life, how do you see those things interconnected with your finances and your financial journey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's good. And it's something that I think we were talking before starting. Like I have seen it inadvertently shift, and so I come from a background that they were not financially savvy. It was just not it. Poverty mindset, impoverished, like um, generationally impoverished, and then getting to a middle class family, but still has to kind of work through some things, and just so my relationship with money is it started out very rough. I would say that. And it took me moving away to like really see how rough it was, and like just some of the ways that I would, think about things. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sis, yeah, you need some help. And then of course, as I began to do the work and build, and just kind of sort through some things on my own, I realized that it was just that, a mindset. it required a shift in mindset. And so, of course, hearing like prophetic words like you will be the change agent for your family and in wealth as right, in riches and wealth as well. And I'm like, I ain't never seen it done like that. So you gonna have to help, right? Like, so what's up? And it started with just like a simple budget. And when I tell you, like, that's now one of my favorite things to do, because one, it comes with such peace of mind. I had no clue that literally seeing where your money is allocated and like checking, and I'm a checkbox girl, so I think that has something to do with it too. So I'm like, I can go into my budget and I can see, okay, you have this much more in this category, and once it's done, now yes, okay, of course some months
Yeah, it's
we
fine.
still
It's
right.
inflation. Things are
Yeah,
happening.
but I'm like, but I feel like I can say when it comes to my purpose and the things that I'm now walking into, because I value peace so much more, it's even peace of mind when I'm like able to look at my budget. I'm not scared to look at my account anymore because I'm like, you know what you spent, and even if you are overspent, right? You now can at least see where those changes happen or where you overdid the here and there, right? And so I would definitely say that's how those two have merged. And so as God has elevated me and put me in different spaces, giving me glimpses of what life will soon be, I'm like, okay, yeah. So that means you have to spend differently. But also I have learned, thank you God, I've learned that it's not my money anyway,
Come
right?
on now.
It's not mine anyway.
Come on now.
And so, one thing that I don't know if we talk much about anymore, but the principle and the beauty and the blessing of being a tither, like the sower will always have seed to sow. And so that has become such a game changer for me. Like making sure I'm paying my tithes monthly. He told me a number maybe like a year or so ago, and it was definitely more than the tenth that I was making at the time. But he told me a number and it challenged me. But when I tell you that was that year alone, I I gave probably, and I don't mind sharing because it's just how God was. I was making, I feel like, anywhere between like $50,000 or somewhere along that line. I end up giving away. You know how they give you your statements at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Between tithes and offering, I had given almost $9,000 in that one year, and I'm like, now where did that come from?
Yeah.
How was I able to do that? How was I able to give $500 here and right? And I'm like, God, this math ain't mathing. And he's like, but you give.
Yeah.
And you will always have something to give because you give without reservation. You give when I ask you to, and not just to the church, but like giving, having a giving heart. And so I definitely will, I have to give credit to tithing, right? Because it's true that he has literally made sure I've like never have gone without, even if it ain't in my account, somehow is making its
It's
way
coming.
back,
It's
right?
coming.
And so with that, I'm just like, if you keep showing up like this, then I'm not going to trip on money because it ain't mine. And if you tell me to give here, okay, got it. And he has challenged me in a lot of ways, and I'm like, now where is gonna come from? Because I know you see my account. I know you see this account. And I will give it, and sure enough, that thing come right back, and I'm like, well, and it's not always financial, right? So
Right.
let's be clear there. It's not always coming back the way that it was released, but it always comes back. And
Yeah.
I think that has changed the game for me for so many reasons. And so it's no tight grip anymore. And I
Yeah.
think that between the piece of seeing where the money goes, but also seeing how it comes back, it's like, yeah, okay. If you want me to give, got it.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned like in the beginning, just how it connects to your purpose and to your
Hmm.
values of being
Hmm.
the peacemaker, right? Like
Hmm.
just being able to manage your money can give you peace. I always talk about like how budgeting is a form of self-love and self-care
Yeah,
because it does allow you to have peace and control over your
yeah.
finances when you are able to master your money instead of your money mastering you. It is a
Hello.
completely different type of peace.
Yeah.
Um, and so that is, I love that you mentioned that. But even then, with the giving, right? I believe that there's four different ways that we manage our money, right? We can spend it, we can save it, we can give it, we can invest it. And I feel like
Hmm.
that giving part, right, is often overlooked. We're like, okay, money in, money out. I'm getting, I'm spending, I'm getting, I'm
Hmm.
spending. And we have to
Hmm.
focus on that giving part.
Yeah.
That is when I see the most shifts in my life is when I am charitable, when I am giving. And again, like you said,
Yes.
not even just to church. It is always such a blessing to be able to be a blessing to someone else,
Hmm.
someone that you
Hmm.
know is in need. And again, it might not always come back financial, but that is a
Yeah.
huge, huge thing that is has made a difference in my life as well. It's
Yeah.
just being a good steward of your money and being able
Correct.
to be charitable and giving, because like you said, it ain't yours to begin with. So just go
Hmm.
ahead, let go, release your hands, okay? Let it go, and it will also come back.
And that
Um,
also means you have room to receive. Exactly.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
this conversation. This has been amazing. I absolutely loved it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for correcting me in the beginning. It's Alexis Wills. Sorry, y'all.
No, listen, girl, it happens more times than not. So it is become even autopilot for me. So you are just fine. It's okay.
Okay. Can please tell the people, the listeners, how they can stay connected with you if they are
Mhm.
interested in working with you. Tell them all the things that are
Yeah.
coming up. Just share with the people.
Absolutely. So we can get connected a few different ways. And so I do have my website where you can book a consultation if you are interested in working together. If you know that God has called you to some things and you're like, I just need to figure out how to get there. Let's talk. So you can find me at glowinlifestyle.com, and that is GLOWIN lifestyle.com. And then on Instagram, you can our business page is glowing lifestyle, but it's g.l.o.win_lifestyle, or you can find my personal page, which is a.lashan.w. It's a lot of dots in there, I know. And I am also on podcast. So we are streaming. The Me Too Sis podcast is streaming on YouTube. It is streaming on Spotify as well as Apple Podcast. And so if you are a YouTuber or if you just love podcasts, definitely check us out. Season 2 is alive and well. And so we are having a lot of these same conversations. And so, absolutely, in so many ways. So I just love for you. I would love for you all to connect. And we are all going to be living this glowing lifestyle. Listen, all
Yes,
of us.
ma'am. I love it. We're gonna be growing and glowing. Okay, listen.
Okay, growing and glowing.
I
Yes,
feel like
yes.
another collab is in the future. Okay,
It's
we're gonna grow
it's
and glow.
feeling like it's
I feel
brewing.
it.
It's feeling
I
like it's brewing.
It's a thing. We're gonna make that a thing. I am going to link all of Alexis's handles and websites and all of the things in the show notes. Please make sure you connect with her. She
Yes.
is an amazing bright light. When I think
Mhm.
about just the women who are listening to this podcast and the women that are on this podcast. These are the type of women that you need to be connected with.
Yeah.
Yes, it's fun to kiki and look at Shade Room. It is nice to have, the housewives on in the background, but you
Mhm.
also need to make sure that your spirit is being filled.
Correct.
You are in the right spaces and rooms and consuming the right type of food that is going
Correct.
to
Yeah.
nourish your soul. So please get connected to her and all the other speakers that are going to be on this
Yes.
podcast. And I hope that this all served you well. And until next time, y'all keep growing. And so I hope that you all enjoyed that episode with Alexis and just how she explained what your purpose is and how to really start to uncover and discover what your purpose is because it's already inside of you, like she said. And so your assignment for today's episode is to really take some time to spend with God and to spend with yourself to really start to peel back these layers and see what are some of the common threads? What are some of the signs, the essence of who you are that have always been there? who did God create you to be? So if you do that, I would love to hear from you of what you discover in that time that you're spending. If you already have identified your purpose and understand what your assignment is in this season, I would love to hear that too. So you could put that down in the comments in this video, or you can message me. My email is at the bottom. It's hello@thelotuslegacy.co. And until next time, y'all keep growing.